because you think you're too fly, bye-bye.
Before becoming a sculptor, well, there really wasn't much to do apart from just growing up. I've been sculpting for about 40 odd years. I was about 10, 11 when I started. So other than being a child and just growing up, there really wasn't much that I did before becoming a sculptor. What I will say is that becoming a sculptor or discovering my passion in art and sculpture helped really define me. My self-esteem and my confidence was very low as a child. I suffered with asthma and bronchitis, and to this day I still do. But that really helped to define and give me credibility and worth and value. Having a lot of the students in school coming and wanting to see my art and marveling at what I did really built my self-esteem and confidence. And so it's something that I knew I wanted to hold on to and never let go, hence pursuing sculpturing all my life. My hobbies outside of sculpturing. I love track and field athletics. And I spend a lot of time training and competing for Great Britain, actually, as a masters athlete. And so that really is a great release. It adds balance to my life, and so I'm not just totally focused on sculpturing. It gives me that balance to sort of just step outside of the box and enjoy something completely different, and also representing Great Britain as an athlete. Who or what influenced me to become a sculptor? That's an interesting question. I think the classics, Michelangelo, Rodin, Bernini, the works they created were obviously incredible, and that did impress me as a child. However, what I wanted to do as an artist was to use my work to address real life issues. And that's what really inspired me. That really got me motivated. How could I use my art to make a difference, to address, if it's communication, respect, discipline, patience, humility, forgiveness? How can I incorporate those kind of principles and those kind of themes into my artwork? And so for me, it's about, yes, hopefully, creating art that people appreciate aesthetically, but hopefully there's something they can take from it, they can internalize and personalize and elevate their own lives in some way, shape or form. So I hope my art and my sculptures are inspirational as well as empowering. What was my first sculpture? You know, it's interesting because my first sculpture was just a block of wood that I wasn't supposed to take home from school, but I did. And I worked on it, sheared off the edges and polished until it literally shone, and it was round like an egg. And I was actually quite nervous because when I went back the following week, I thought I'm going to get into trouble because I shouldn't have taken it home. And so when I took it out of the bag and revealed it to the teacher walked out of the room, and I was so afraid. I thought I'm going to get detention, I'm going to be in trouble. And she came back with about 3 or 4 members of staff, and they said, "Did you do this?" And nervously I said, "Yes, I did." And they said, "It's amazing." And all it was just a wooden block that I'd turned into a round, smooth, sort of oval egg shape. And instantly, I became popular in school. You know, I was very much in the shadows and the sidelines, but all of a sudden, all the pretty girls wanted to come and say, "Oh, Donald, can we have a look at your egg?" All the guys came and said, "Oh, can we see what you've done?" And as I said before, my self-esteem and confidence just blossomed. And it gave me a feeling of worth and value. And just something as simply as taking a piece of wood and applying and being creative and doing what I wanted to do and having the authority from the teachers to say, "Do what you want to do." It was great. It was a release. It was an epiphany, that moment where I realized I'm good at something, and people realize that. And so as early as then, just doing a block of wood and remembering how I just applied myself to it, that was the first piece I did, and I really remembered the long-term effect it had, both physically and emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It was just elevating. It was a great time. Well, some of my established pieces. I've done a number of pieces, one particular called A Genius with Four Masters, which features Marcus Garvey and Mahatma Gandhi in the background because they were further back in history. And then in the foreground, we have Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And in the center, we have Nelson Mandela breaking prison bars open and striding forward. And that was a piece that I titled A Genius with Four Masters. And the reason I called it that was because each individual was a genius in their own right. But whenever you get a master's degree, you get the letters MA after your name. And the irony is those two letters MA are also the first two letters of Marcus, Mahatma, Malcolm, Martin, and Mandela. And it was bringing those words together and celebrating who they were and what they'd achieved. And so that was one particular piece that I was featured in Essence magazine many years ago. And that brought a lot of attention to me.
Bye 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 bye
What inspired me to make the Millennium Monument? I really wanted to create a sculpture that celebrated people of the African diaspora. I wanted the monument to pay tribute and homage to the contributions that we have made throughout history, throughout centuries, and to encapsulate that within the sculpture and to celebrate the role of the man and the woman in terms of the contributions. And so the inspiration came from realizing that in my own life growing up, there weren't enough positive images that represented me that I could identify with. And so being an artist, I felt, it was part of my responsibility to hold myself accountable to address that particular issue. And so part of the inspiration came from wanting to create a monument that, as I said, people of the African diaspora could identify with and also celebrate and pay tribute to the many contributions that we have made throughout history. It means so much because we have to look at how art influences the masses. We're surrounded literally by so many things, the clothes we wear, the chairs we sit on, the cars we drive. Everything is designed and created from an artistic perspective. But with that comes a message. And so for me, it's about infusing my sculpture with a message that hopefully will mean not just something to empower myself, but to empower others. I mean, the sculpture itself features a man striding across the world, lifting up the entire continent of Africa, with America and England and Japan. And that represents the four corners of the world. And what I'm saying there is that we've done so much. People of the African diaspora have contributed in so many ways to elevate the world to greater heights. And so for me, it's important to recognize the role of the African man and what he's done. But the irony is that whereas you might think it's the man that's raising the world, when the monument is turned around, you realize it's the woman carrying the weight of the world on her back. And that for me is a very poignant and searing statement that is not recognized enough and not celebrated and applauded enough. And so the meaning of the monument is to hopefully inform millions of people of the monumental contributions that we have and continue to make. What are my hopes for the Millennium Monument? Well, I hope that the Millennium Monument becomes something that not just people of the African diaspora can relate to, but all nationalities. I mean, we're living in very unique times where protests are taking place, monuments are being removed, different nationalities are coming together and joining forces and saying, yes, it's more than high time that we come together and acknowledge the contributions that people of the African diaspora have made. And I hope that it will serve to be, if you will, a beacon of light to educate and elevate present and future generations. And we have to remember that it begins there in the schools with the young ones, informing them that this world, the way in which these empires were built, weren't on just the shoulders of other nationalities, but that people of the African diaspora also contributed, and that our contributions, they also matter. And it's more a case of celebrating the universality of all nationalities, and also to make a statement that we are also important, that our contributions are also significant. And I hope it's a message that all nationalities will internalize and personalize.